There is a lie that modern society repeats like scripture. A lie dressed as motivation. A lie disguised as personal responsibility. It says, if you're poor, you must be lazy. If you're struggling, you must be undisciplined. If you can't get ahead, you must be broken. But what if the truth is far darker? What if poverty is not simply an empty bank account, but a neurological environment? What if scarcity doesn't just hurt your finances, but rewires your mind, the way war rewires a soldier? Because the most dangerous prison is the one that convinces you it doesn't exist. It's about time. It's about impulse. It's about survival psychology. It's about why some people make decisions that look irrational until you understand the battlefield they're living in. And it's about a cruel paradox. Poverty creates the exact mindset that keeps you poor. Welcome to Umbra Decode. To understand the poverty mindset, we must begin with a brutal biological truth. Your brain is not designed for wealth. It is designed for survival. The human nervous system was forged in scarcity. For most of history, food was uncertain. Safety was temporary. Winter was an enemy. So the brain evolved with one primary objective: secure the present, even if it destroys the future. Now here's the modern horror. When you grow up poor or live under chronic financial pressure, your brain doesn't interpret it as a budgeting problem. It interprets it as predation. Scarcity becomes a constant threat signal, a low-grade emergency that never ends. And when the brain detects threat, it shifts into a different operating mode. Not reflective, not strategic, not patient, but reactive. This is where the first key mechanism appears: tunnel vision. Scarcity collapses your attention. It narrows your focus to what is urgent and blinds you to what is important. If you've ever been drowning, you don't ask, how do I build a boat next year? You ask, how do I breathe in the next 10 seconds? That's tunnel vision.
When money is tight, your brain becomes obsessed with immediate problems. Rent due, food today, fuel this week, the next bill, the next crisis, and the future becomes a luxury item. Because planning requires mental space, and scarcity steals space.
Now listen carefully. This is not weakness. It's adaptive. In a hostile environment, long-term thinking can be fatal. If you're starving, saving calories for tomorrow is irrational. If you're under threat, self-improvement is irrelevant. So the poverty mindset is not stupidity. It's strategy for a world that is on fire. But here's the catch. Modern life rewards those who can delay gratification, think long-term, and invest in tomorrow. So the survival brain becomes a weapon that turns inward.
In economics, there's a concept that sounds clinical, but explains almost everything. It's called time preference. Time preference is how much you value now versus later. A person with low time preference can say, I will suffer today so I can win tomorrow. A person with high time preference says, I need relief now. Tomorrow is uncertain. Poverty creates high time preference. Because when you grow up in chaos, tomorrow doesn't feel real. It feels hypothetical. And the brain learns a lesson. Take what you can while you can. This is why poverty is often paired with impulsive spending, fast dopamine choices, addictions, risky decisions, treat yourself cycles. Not because poor people are irresponsible, but because the brain is trying to regulate pain. When you are stressed, deprived, and powerless, pleasure becomes medicine. A small hit of dopamine becomes proof that you still exist, and this creates a cycle: scarcity to stress, to impulsive relief, to consequences, to deeper scarcity. The poverty loop. It's not a moral failure. It's a feedback system.
And the cruelest part? Even when money increases, the brain often stays trapped in the old operating system because it wasn't trained for stability. It was trained for emergency.
You've likely heard of the famous marshmallow test. A child is given a choice: eat one marshmallow now or wait and receive two later. It became a cultural myth. Successful people delay gratification. But here's what most people miss. Delay isn't just discipline. Delay is trust. Trust that the future will come. Trust that the reward will still exist. Trust that the world is stable enough to wait.
If you grew up in an environment where promises were broken, adults were unreliable, food was uncertain, safety was inconsistent, then waiting is not noble. Waiting is stupid, because in unstable worlds, the future steals from you. So the poor decision is often the correct decision for the environment that shaped it. This is why poverty doesn't just reduce income. It changes your relationship with time itself. It turns the future into an enemy.
Let's get surgical. Scarcity doesn't just change behavior, it changes cognition. Under financial stress, your mental bandwidth gets consumed. Imagine your brain as a computer. Now imagine you have 47 tabs open: rent due, credit card, groceries, school fees, car repair, unexpected illness. What if I lose my job?
Even if you are intelligent, your system begins to lag. Your attention fragments. Your memory weakens. Your executive function collapses. The part of you responsible for planning, the prefrontal cortex, gets hijacked by threat.
This is why scarcity produces what looks like bad decisions: taking predatory loans, ignoring long-term opportunities, missing deadlines, forgetting appointments, making avoidable mistakes. Not because the person doesn't care, but because the brain is fighting a war on multiple fronts, and the enemy is invisible.
Scarcity doesn't just drain money, it drains cognition. So poverty becomes a psychological tax on your ability to escape poverty, a trap with teeth.
Now let's address the most misunderstood phenomenon of all. Why do lottery winners go broke? You would think money solves money problems, but money does not automatically install a new mindset. If your psychology is still wired for scarcity, wealth becomes fuel for self-destruction. Because the brain doesn't experience sudden wealth as freedom. It experiences it as a temporary window of relief. So it behaves accordingly. Spending explodes. Impulse dominates. Status purchases replace strategy.
This is the key principle. Your income can change overnight, but your identity cannot. A poverty identity says, money doesn't stay. I need to enjoy it now. Something bad is coming. This is too good to be true. So the subconscious rushes to restore the familiar, even if the familiar is misery.
Because the brain prefers a predictable hell over an unfamiliar heaven. And that is why some people sabotage success, quitting good jobs, destroying relationships, overspending, falling into addictions, returning to chaos. Not because they're foolish, but because stability feels unsafe.
When you live in scarcity, your nervous system learns there is never enough. There will never be enough, even when there is. This is why some people with money still feel poor. They don't trust abundance. They hoard, or they burn through it. Two sides of the same wound. So, can the poverty mindset be escaped? Yes, but not through motivational quotes, not through shame, and not through pretending the battlefield doesn't exist. You escape it the way you escape any conditioning, by building a new environment and training a new nervous system. Let's be precise. Step 1. Build a buffer, even a small one.
Scarcity thinking is amplified by having no margin. Even a tiny emergency fund reduces threat perception.
It's not about the amount. It's about teaching your brain we can survive surprises. Step 2. Reduce cognitive load. If you're constantly juggling bills and chaos, you can't think. Automate what you can. Simplify decisions. Reduce financial tabs. Less mental clutter means more strategic capacity. Step 3. Delay gratification in microdoses. Don't try to become a monk overnight. Train patience like a muscle. Wait 10 minutes before an impulse purchase, then 30, then a day. This is not about suffering. It's about proving to your brain the future is real. Step 4. Identity shift from survivor to strategist. This is the deepest transformation. You must stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts and become someone who plans.
A survivor says, "What do I need right now?" A strategist asks, "What am I building?" Step 5. Replace shame with understanding. Shame keeps people trapped because shame says you are the problem, but understanding says you were conditioned by a system and you can be reconditioned. The poverty mindset isn't a character flaw, it's a survival adaptation. And like all adaptations, it can become obsolete. Poverty is not just a lack of money. It is a state of mind forged in uncertainty and maintained by stress. It teaches the brain to live in the now, because the now is the only place that feels guaranteed. But the future is not a fantasy, it is a territory. And the people who escape poverty are not always the smartest. They are the ones who learn to reclaim time, to widen their tunnel vision into a horizon, to stop fighting for survival and start fighting for strategy. If this video gave you clarity, you already took the first step. You saw the machine, and once you see it, you can dismantle it. Subscribe to Umbra Decode, and remember, the most dangerous prison is the one you defend as normal.